Let's bring on the man himself, Sixers Inquirer writer Keith Pompey, getting ready for Sixers Nets. Mr. Pompey, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. What's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
We're doing good. I wasn't sure if you were going to come on and just start firing at Jeff, or was I going to start a conversation with you, so I was going to let you take it away first.
The Michigan comments, he's just building them up for the
Yeah,
end
I figured
of
that
the
was coming early.
Nah, isn't that like a lacrosse school?
There we go. Well played. All right.
Wow.
All right, Keith, we've made it. The regular season is done. We're supposedly healthy. The Sixers, you can see by the 1 p.m. start times this game and Game 4 how interested the NBA is in this series. But we have the first series here. What do you expect from this team going in?
You know what? I expect the 76ers to win this series, and I expect the 76ers to win the series in 5 games, right? I do. But for the first game, I'm a little nervous. And the reason being is because, like you said, they're well-rested. They've been off for a while. They're 2 best players. Heck, all of them, Maxey too. But you look at this Brooklyn Nets team, and it's a squad that they only played once with this iteration, and that was Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson's first game in Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith, their second game, and we're talking about 4 to 5 starters. So I don't really think you can base everything off of that with the Sixers. So I think it may take the Sixers a game or 2 to figure this squad out. So I would not be surprised if the Sixers lost Game 1, or if they win Game 1, I won't be surprised if they lose Game 4. But with that said, I think they'll win, but I'm just a little bit unsure how they're going to come out and how they're going to look tomorrow.
You have any idea how out of sorts this city will be if they lose Game 1 to the Ben Simmons-less Nets?
I know, that's the crazy part, right? I mean, that's the crazy part. But things happen. I mean, like, they'll really be upset if Mikal Bridges has more than 30 points too, right?
Yeah, the Sixers better not hand out free hot dogs at the game. It'll be really bad down there. So, I watched the Nets the other day, Keith, and I actually was pretty impressed by what they have cobbled together.
He texted me his concern level.
Yeah, from what this disaster of a season that the Nets have had with Durant and Irving and Ben Simmons, they've actually put together a really good team, and I'm using team as the key here, in that Spencer Dinwiddie has become a really good distributor. Mikal Bridges is turned into the player that we all dreaded when the Sixers drafted him.
That we all wanted when they drafted him, and then dreaded when they traded him.
Right. You have Finney-Smith, who is a really good defender, and you just have a team. They have a really good starting 5. They don't have a great starting 5, but they have a team that the Sixers need to worry about.
Yeah, they do, and that's the thing. And then not only that, like you're talking about, the great defenders, but they also have like 7 legitimate 3-point shooters on the team. And, they lack size. They have length, but they lack size. And I think that's where Joel Embiid is going to have a field day. But, I mean, outside of that, it's hard to say that they lose many other matchups outside of the center position. When you look at the Sixers team, yes, their defense is pretty good, but they give up a lot of shots in the perimeter, especially threes, right? They also have a tough time defending athletic wings who can get their own shot. Well, you got Mikal Bridges, and who can get his shot, and a guy who scored 30 or more points. I want to say 14 times, 14 out of the 17 games, something creative, or 13 out of that he played. It's just been ridiculous his number, right? But then you have guys who can shoot the threes, and I keep calling him this, and I hope he doesn't think that I'm being disrespectful or anything like that. But son-in-law. Steph Curry, Doc Rivers' son-in-law, like he's a guy that comes to town and he's always torching them. So, and we know why he's torching them, because it's one of those, you guys are going to pay for trading me games. So when you talk about all those things, that's where I think the Sixers could get themselves in trouble. But I do believe that they'll still they'll stumble, get dazed, whatever. and then they'll regroup, and then they'll like do a gentleman's sweep.
Well, and I mean, after the trade deadline, this team shot almost 44% from three-point line. That was the fifth highest in the league. My question is, how do the Nets defend Embiid? They switched a lot on Harden Embiid's screens in the one post-deadline matchup they had. They put smaller defenders on Embiid. But if you look at it through the season, Harden and Maxey have shot combined 41% from distance on passes out from Embiid. So how do the Nets approach this in terms of battling that game where we talked about it last time, how much Harden enjoys coming down the court, dropping it back to Embiid, or Embiid enjoys passing it off to them to create space for each other?
Yeah, it's funny because in yesterday in Brooklyn, all they were talking about is how we got to do a group effort. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to stop Embiid. They never really talked about anyone else. All they talked about was Embiid. So to me, when I hear things like that, I think what they're going to do is they're going to defend Embiid. They may double him. They may do a couple things. But I think their priority is going to be on stopping Maxey, stopping Harden, stopping Tobias Harris, right? I think it.
What about wait? What about PJ Tucker? Who's going to stop him?
I mean, they'll try to stop him too, but he's so far he's the fifth option on offense. I mean, PJ could have a pretty good game if they leave him open, right? If he makes a couple shots, but I also think that because if you look at this approach, this is what the Boston Celtics have done. I mean, you look at Embiid. You see how he's always having these high scoring performances, but they're not always, but they're usually for naught. And I feel like if I'm Brooklyn and I'm looking at Embiid and I know that I can't defend him, is it going to be one of those things where I don't want the ball to move, I want it to stick, and I want these guys to be ice cold going into the fourth quarter, and then hopefully pray that we can squeak out one. I mean, yes, somebody's going to be the sacrificial lamb on defense, but hope and pray that, that could be the reason why we're going to win this game.
The last couple games of the season, Tyrese Maxey was not on the court. Is there any lingering effect with Tyrese Maxey going into these playoffs? And the other thing is I've noticed that when he comes back from an injury, whether it be short or long, he needs a few games to heat up again at a minimum. Is this going to be an issue with him?
I don't think it probably will on this one. I think that, because basically with the NBA, you know how it goes in regular season. It's kind of, you really don't practice a lot. So all of a sudden, you didn't get any good practices in and you're not really doing anything leading up to that. And then you get in the game and you got to get back to the game speed. I think the fact that they had a week off, and they had a couple of days that they can go out on the court and do some stuff at high tempo. I think that he'll be fine because, Brooklyn is dealing with the same thing because, yes, Maxey missed the last 3 games, but the guys from Brooklyn, they've been off for at least a week as well. So I think he'll be fine.
The Nets and Sixers are tied in fast break points, but it's Philly's transition defense. They're ranked 28th in fast break points given up. What type of game do the Sixers want? Do they want to control the fast break and have it be a half-court game where they give the three-point shots to Brooklyn with the chances? How do you think the defensive approach will be for this team?
For the Sixers, I mean, that's, I think the defense approach is you're going to try to have a crowd. I know that Brooklyn likes doing switching. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Sixers did some switching. Or the thing about it is they got so many shooters. And I know you say you basically, you need shooters to get out of the zone, a guy to penetrate and kick the ball out. But I don't know if Brooklyn has a guy who can do that and kick it out like that, a pretty good point guard like that. So I feel like the Sixers, they might mix up and do like a matchup zone, do some other zones, do some switching. I think, just try to keep it as unpredictable as possible by just continuing to switch things up against them.
All right. This season, this playoffs, does Doc actually have a rotation? Do we have a set, at least for the first round, do we have a set rotation of who comes in when the starters go out?
Well, I think we do. I think that for the first time in a while, we're going to see a smaller bench, a smaller, rotation. I think right now the guys that are going to come off the bench are going to be DeAnthony Melton, George Niang, Jalen McDaniels, and the ninth guy is going to be Paul Reed for right now going in. Now, if somebody gets attacked, then he's going to have to like switch it up a little bit. But for at least this round, I say that these guys are going to be the rotation, and I believe so. In my opinion, they're going to be the rotation.
Well, if it's a 9-man rotation, that means there'll be at least one starter in it at all times. You don't think Shake's going to see the court very often in this round?
I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where we didn't really get to see Shake a lot. Now, the one thing is I think if there may be someone who we're going to see, it's probably going to be Daniel House, just because of his versatility, a guy who could play multiple positions, and a guy who's a veteran. And I think Doc has, likes that in him. So I think you would probably see D House more so than that. Now, I will say that of the three guys, and you can only judge it by who you talk to, but sometimes you can be wrong. Of the reserves who we talked to this week were George Niang, Daniel House, DeAnthony Melton, and Jalen McDaniels. Oh no, I take that back. George didn't speak. I take that back. George didn't speak. It was Jalen McDaniels, Daniel House, Paul Reed, and DeAnthony Melton. So they were the four right there. But I expect George to be in a rotation.
What do you think? I saw you had a story this week, Sam Cassell getting permission to interview for the Rockets head coaching position. Is that any a distraction at all? I mean, I obviously have my opinions on wanting him to be here, but do the players care when one of their coaches gets an opportunity, or are they excited for them?
I think it's more so you're excited for a guy like Sam. You know what I mean? Because Sam is a great guy, great personality. I was there where he was playing George Niang in one-on-one, and he was beating when George was getting upset. I was videotaping it.
Great. That's great to hear.
Is Cassell available for the game for this series then? We can use shooters.
That's what you want to hear going into the playoffs, Keith, is that the coach was beating one of the men in the rotation.
Yeah, it was funny. He was like, "Yo, you didn't post that, did you?" Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Right. And Sam was like, "That's right, Pop. Post it. Right. So when you see a guy like that, like you see it was George wasn't really playing hard though, so let's say that. But when you see a guy like that, it's one of those things where everybody wants him to get his job. Like, you know what I mean? Sam Cassell. He probably could have had the Temple job if he wanted it. He didn't want to interview for that. He interviewed for the Utah Jazz job, the Boston Celtics, the Washington Wizards. I mean, he's always been a guy who everyone interviewed and for these jobs. So it comes to a point where I think that everyone he plays for, they all root for him, and even his teammates. I mean, the thing about Sam Cassell, he's a guy that when you're around him, like, I don't know. He's just energetic. He's fun. He's funny. I don't know. I think that the guys are rooting for him. Now, with that being said, would they be sad if he left? Yes, they would be. But at the same time, they would like to see him get his flowers, so to speak, and get a coaching job.
How important has Sam Cassell been to the development of the guards, especially Tyrese Maxey?
I mean, huge. I think that, you look at Sam, Sam was there from day one, when Maxey came. It was Sam and another guy, believe it or not, who's been really good with these guys too, is Spencer Rivers, Doc Rivers' son. Like, he's been there with Maxey too. But, you look at Sam, Sam was the guy who, he could still shoot. And in addition to that, he was in the NBA for 15 years. He was a one-time All-Star, and he won 3 titles. So when you have a guy like that talking to you and telling you this stuff, you kind of listen. I mean, because he was a winner. And not only that, he was a good player. So having him putting Maxey through these drills, working with him, talking to him all the time. It's great for all these guards. And I think Sam is one of those guys. Is a reason why he's been with Doc Rivers for 9 years. Like, seriously, he's been with him all the time. And if you notice, sometimes you'll see Doc pull Sam to a side and boom, 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 whispering something. And then Sam will go over to said player and then start, telling him what to do, because he knows that Sam is going to relay the message the right way.
Look, I know you have a lot of work covering, what Ben Simmons is going to wear on the sidelines during this playoff round. So we don't want to keep you on long, but we're going to put you on the spot here. If you had to choose now, who is going to be in the NBA Finals?
Right now,
yep.
I'd say the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm going for major upsets in the West. The Milwaukee Bucks and the Golden State Warriors.
Wow. How I know they have another gear. I know they have all the experience. I know they have Steph Curry. How is it that they're going to be able to turn around what's been a pretty mediocre season?
Yeah, you know what, and that's the thing. That's when I said that. I'm a lot has to go right. Like, they have to be able to show that they can win on the road, something that they weren't able to do. But when you look at the Western Conference, I mean, if someone would to flip flop it and said teams 4, 5, and 6 were 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3 were 4, 5, and 6, you'd be like, yeah, that makes more sense than the way it does now. When I look at them as the number 6 seed, they're going up against Sacramento, which is kind of like your little brother. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't even hit puberty yet, so you could just smack him around and do whatever you want to him, right? I mean, seriously, that's what they do to the Kings. And then from there, if they win that one, then they go to Memphis. And, Memphis has injuries. They do this. I mean, they have injuries. They have, some problems, with Ja Morant and things like that. And also, but they have the mental edge over them. Like, Draymond gets it under their skin. Steph, they have a hard time stopping him. And Steven Adams is hurt. So, to me, I look at it like, yes, this is the 6th seed. They didn't turn it on. But if they can steal a couple games on the road, I honestly believe that they can go to the NBA Finals, because I feel like the path is easy for them, considering the two teams that they would match up with.
You mentioned that Warriors-Kings series. That ticket for Game 1 is averaging almost $670 a ticket now. It's the most expensive non-finals game on record. So there's a lot of interest out there in California about what goes on in that matchup. And that Kings fan base seems real excited with what they built there.
Yeah, Jeff, you going to take us through the game?
It was Jason.
Don't look at me. I am so glad that you posed that way, Keith.
Is Jeff going to take us through the game?
Yeah, you just woke me up. I was taking a nap over here.
Jeff wasn't paying attention. All of a sudden, he's dropping $1,800 for the three of us to get into the game.
That doesn't include airfare.
Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue.
You're very generous with my money, Keith.
I like it when he does that.
Keith, look, we can't thank you enough for coming on the show every time that you come on the show. If there's anybody to read on the NBA, you're the guy. So thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you. I'm going to tell my mom, I'm going to thank her for paying you to say that.
we can clip the audio so you can send it to her.
It's whatever she's paying me ain't enough to fly you to Sacramento, though.
Take it easy, Keith.
All right, thanks, y'all. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I got a trip to California out of that one. Glad we did that interview.
I don't know where you think you got the trip.
Keith set it all up. I heard it. I've got witnesses, again, people on the radio. It's recorded.
Again, you both are very generous with other people's money.
I'm just saying, if you want to back out of an agreement that you made with your man Keith Pompey live on the radio, I can't help that you don't live up to your word.
If you think that's an agreement, you clearly did not go to law school.